I'm really excited to be here at our first Residence Inn in London. London is a great city, right? It's one of the premier cities of the world. So as a brand with a footprint of almost 1,000 properties, it's about time we were in a fantastic market like London, where there's so much demand, but also where there's a population that can also help raise awareness for the brand, in Europe specifically, where we have a lot of growth. This property is in some ways very typical of a Residence Inn in the United States, and in other ways it's a little bit different from our properties in the US. What's different about it is primarily because it's intensely urban. The room itself is a little smaller than what a suburban prototypical Residence Inn would be like in the US. In the US, our prototype is 42 square meters. But in our urban cities, in the US, a lot of times that footprint is shrunk a little bit as well. And that's what we see here at this London property, where the rooms are typically they're starting at about 27, 28 square meters. And for the one bedrooms, the two bedrooms, they're obviously going up from there. But the key thing, and one of the ways that they're not different, they're very much the same as in the US, is that they still have all of the core design principles that we want in a Residence Inn. Yes, this is a hotel, but it's a very different kind of hotel in that it's designed for long stays. So it's a much more residential experience than what you would get at a typical hotel, which means the rooms are larger than sort of a similar quality hotel would be. It's not just a bigger room, it's also a bigger room that has a full kitchen, but that also feels more like a little apartment. So these rooms, you've seen these suites as you've toured them. They're like studio apartments, one bedroom apartments. They've got a separate area for living from sleeping, separate area for kitchen and dining. So they feel comfortable, they feel relaxing. When you're in a room like this, you can really imagine yourself being here for say 2 weeks at a time, and being very comfortable. Yes, you can work here and be productive, but you can also relax. You can also feel like you're living your normal life, having your normal routines, that you're able to thrive and not just survive on your trip. We will more than double our footprint in Europe in the next 6 months. We currently have 3 properties, one in Edinburgh, one in Munich, and one in Sarajevo. Within the next few months, we'll be opening 2 in London, which we're thrilled about, another one in the UK up in Aberdeen, but another one up in Amsterdam, again, about the turn of the year. Another great gateway, truly iconic city on the European continent. As we see demand for extended stay pervasively, globally, representing about 1/3 of all business travel room nights, we are really excited to see that the investment community in Europe is starting to understand the business model for our brand. That's helping us grow faster. We know customers love our product. We do very high in customer satisfaction all over. We do very high. Our financial performance is always strong, but we found in Europe one of the barriers to our growth has been that the investment community doesn't quite understand the business model for the brand. And is it more like a hotel model, or is it more like a serviced apartment model? And as our first properties have been so successful, I think we're starting to get a little more traction on that side. So our growth is primarily in big business centers, mostly in the 2 biggest markets in Europe, the UK. There are some other properties coming online. Germany is another big market for us, where we'll have a second property in Munich. We'll be opening in Frankfurt, Bonn, Hamburg, but also other places in Europe, France, Poland, etc. So we're really excited about our European growth. It helps really round out the brand. We're in 10 countries now, but pretty soon we'll be in 20 countries. Well, I think it's a really good question. I think most markets tend to develop from the top and the bottom first, and it's usually the middle that comes in. later. So I'm not surprised that the mid-tier has been slower to develop in general. Although Europe is a highly, highly developed market, and so while there is a very strong mid-tier in Europe, extended stay tends to be a little bit of a niche within that mid-tier market. So it is somewhat natural that it's following in that space. But I do think that the investment required is a little bit different. So if the market in Europe, which is a very sophisticated hotel market, already understands this is what it costs to build a Courtyard, this is what it costs to build, a Novotel, it is more expensive to develop a residence in, right? The suites are bigger than a typical hotel room. You have kitchen facilities that you add into that as well. And so I think the market hasn't quite understood how to value the return because they haven't had experience with the return. So having 3 hotels that are open and performing really well, having more interest in letting the investment community evaluate our returns in the US, our returns for our properties in the Middle East and in Latin America, they can start to appreciate that there's 40 years of history here, that yes, it costs more to build, but that you can also, run 10 to 15 point occupancy premium versus the market. That your ability to drive rate on short stays is incredibly powerful. That the margins tend to run easily 5 to 10 points more than similar quality mid-tier product, and typically 20 points more than a full-service hotel. So I think as people start to understand that business model and understand, yes, there is an ROI here, not just look at the cost side of the equation, but look at the return side of the equation, they're starting to understand what a powerful opportunity it is.